5 truths that I want to share with you today. We're going to continue what we've done the last couple of weeks, is talk politics a bit. So as I was praying about this week and reading more books and trying to understand what's going on and what God's calling us to do as followers of Jesus, I was led to the book of Daniel. I don't know how many of you read the book of Daniel. I want to encourage you to read that. But there's a lot going on there, and I think there's a lot that God can speak to us to encourage us, not just in this moment of time in history, but in all moments of time in history. When we're thinking about politics and what can happen, what is happening, what did happen, and what God is calling us to do. In the book of Daniel, I want to share 5 truths with you. The first thing is this, is that no matter what, you and I, we don't have to compromise our values. Our Christian values, our faithful values. When you read the book of Daniel, you see Daniel not compromise, and you see Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego not compromise their values, right? And I think in the book of Acts, right, there's a moment where we must serve God rather than men. We need to honor authority over us, but that doesn't mean that we compromise our values. If people are telling us it's okay to do this and it's against our values, we don't have to do that. We don't have to do that. If people are telling us to do something, commanding us to do something, right, that we're not okay with, we don't have to do that. Right? That's what it means to be faithful. That's what it means not to compromise. Right? And when I read the book of Daniel, I'm reminded in our values and the temptation to compromise that we are called to transform the world, not conform to the patterns of this world. Right? Read the book of Daniel, let God speak to that, and be reminded in all situations in life, not just in politics, but we don't have to compromise our values. Stay true to your values, specifically your biblical values. Second thing is this, is that our example always has influence, right? And I pray that we're always respectful and gentle, right? God's word says that be gentle, be respectful. Our example, what we do, how we don't compromise our values, has influence. You see that in Daniel. And maybe, just maybe, God's calling some of us, and some of you are already in politics that exist out in the world. You're in some office where you do have a seat at the table, right, when it comes to politics, right? And just know this, you have influence. You have influence. People know what integrity is. They sense character. They sense values. And in the book of Daniel, you see that there's influence. Daniel rises up, right, the political sphere in Babylon, right? He has influence, even though he's even held captive. Right? His faith is against the law, right? He still has influence, right? Light's always shining in the darkness. It always has influence. So know that. Know that. The other thing is this, is that God is always at work. God is always at work, right? Even in the moment in the book of Daniel where the nation of Israel is being disciplined by Babylon for their lack of faith, God's still working. God is still at work. God is still faithful. And even when you sense that He's not working in all aspects of life, right, the truth of our faith is that He is working. He was working during the time that Jeremiah spoke about. He was working during the time that not just Daniel existed, but a lot of the prophets. God was working in the lives of His children, fulfilling promises. Right? He was right there with them. And not just that, we're called not to compromise in all situations. We're called to actually know that our example sets influence, but that God is at work. God's eye is on the details and the big picture. Read the book of Daniel, right? You're going to see a huge picture. It's like you zoom out and you see all these prophecies, and we want to seek to understand, have these prophecies been fulfilled? Yes, some of them have some of them not? Yes, some of them haven't, right? Already, not yet, right? There's a big picture going on, and God's eye is always on that, so remember that. Right? We live in a moment of time here in 2024, but there's a huge picture going on that God understands, that God is working in, but not just the big picture, but He's in the details. Right? He's in the details, and certainly you see that in the book of Daniel, specific moments, specific prophecies that are coming true even in the book of Daniel. Right? He's in the detail, He's in the big picture. Right? That's our God. The last thing is this, is that prayers are always heard. Prayers are always heard. And so Daniel prays. He prays a lot in the book of Daniel. Daniel chapter 9, I think about that. There's confession taking place. There's, in the prayer moment, there's the promises of God being spoken out loud in Daniel's prayer. Prayers, right? Prayers are always powerful, and when you're feeling overwhelmed, right? And maybe some of us are feeling overwhelmed. Some of us maybe just want to have the deer in the headlights where we're just frozen, right? Some of us are super active in conversations about politics and our thoughts, and maybe some of us need to create more boundaries and margin and not listen to the radio all the time and TV stations all the time. But here's what I want you to hear. Here's what I heard through the book of Daniel. You don't have to compromise your values, never, ever. Our example has influence. Know that, right? How you carry yourself, and we've talked about this the last couple of weeks. God is working. He's always working. God has a big picture in mind, and He's in the details. And prayer always is effective, not just with changing things, but changing this thing, giving a peace that surpasses all human understanding. And so I want to encourage you this week, read the book of Daniel. Ask God to speak to you about the influence that you can have and what it means to be faithful in all aspects of life, but certainly when it comes to politics. God bless. Have a great week.